I'm going to greet Marbet, who is live with us. Hello, Marbet. How are you? Good evening.
Very well. Here I am listening to the stories, which are honestly very interesting. Well, I always thought I have a story. And today, when they talked about Umbanda, I remembered that at some point I had an experience with that religion.
Let's see. Tell us.
Well, it turns out that I was working very young, many years ago. I was working as a waitress on the catamarans, in Tigre.
Okay.
Well, there was a couple there. Well, one of the waitresses, it was May, I think.
Okay, yes.
And she had a husband who was a father. And I had become friends. They were a little older than me, and I had become friends with a girl my age. She was about 21, 20 years old, and I must have been 24, 25, no. And she tells me, "Oh, you have no idea how good this religion is." Well, one day we were all eating together there after we took the trip on the catamaran. You know what they used to do? Round trips with groups of retirees and people, everyone. And she tells me that, well, she eats chicken. I don't know what it was that they didn't eat. And I ask her, "Why don't you eat chicken?" "Oh, no, they are from the Umbanda religion." And the girl tells me, "Oh, but do you know how good that religion is?" "What is that?" "Oh, well." So I accepted and said, well, I'm going to go to a meeting out of curiosity with this girl. The two of us went. And there was the May and the Pai. Well, they show me, we go to the house there in Tigre, but a place farther away from where the center of Tigre, where the catamarans leave from, right? And we go to the meeting, and well, he shows me that he has the saints inside, the saints outside, the ones outside. These ones, they're bad. A guy like that. And the ones inside, no, but they're with the good saints and they do good things. Well, we started the meeting. There was all kinds of food, And the only thing I ate was this, but I felt kind of weird about it because I didn't know where all that food came from, Because later I found out that they sacrifice animals. And there were things like, I don't know, chicken rooster, I don't know what it was.
Alive?
And well, the only thing I had to eat was popcorn.
Okay.
I just felt like eating that, and after that I didn't eat anything else. And that night we stayed there. Well, the meeting started, they were circling around like that, going around, like the dream of the girl you were just talking about.
Okay, good.
I was telling you?
Yes.
That she dreamed about a meeting? Well, I was in a meeting like that, and everyone was like this, spinning, and doing really strange things that I didn't understand. And suddenly I felt something, like something came out of me,
Okay.
And then they asked me, "Did you feel something happen to you?" The Pai and the May, who were companions. Well, the girl was my co-worker from the catamaran job. And I told them, no, honestly I didn't, but I did feel something strange. And well, after that we stayed there to sleep, And I was left with that feeling that they had taken something from me. Because after that, things started going badly for me and went wrong. Right after that, when I left there, I was living in Congreso at that time, On the way, when I was coming back from that meeting. Well, I stayed that day. And then the next day with the girl, the one I became friends with, we left. I traveled alone to Congreso and she lived somewhere else, San Miguel, I think. And I felt like I was seeing people, the ones I had seen at that meeting, and like they communicate with each other. And I don't know, that's the idea I got. And everything started going so badly for me, I'm telling you, that I thought, well, at that meeting, they took something from me.
Okay, when you say...
Without asking my permission, okay?
Okay, that's what I meant. You said they took it without permission, so that's stealing.
Of course, because on top of that, I stayed overnight at that place. And I say out of curiosity, I went into a place. And after that, things started happening to me. I'm telling you, something that happened to me, that I was robbed of I was collecting my salary, and I leave from there, from Tigre, all the way to Congreso, I used to travel by train, then by subway and all that. And I get to the place where I was living with a friend back then, and they stole my entire paycheck, and after they stole that paycheck from me, I never went back there again. Later, I went back to collect what they owed me, I don't know, and she says to me, "What happened to you? Why didn't you come back, Marta?" she says. No, and I told them what had happened to me, and afterwards, what happened to me was that I met my ex-husband, a man who also told me that he had been to Umbanda meetings. I married that man. I had some terrible experiences with that man. And a lot of things that happened to me, the only good thing I had, was that I had 3 beautiful children, which is the gift that God gave me. And today I'm separated, but this man, was very, very cruel to me, and I say, a lot of things happened to me that I related to that.
Of course, you have it fixed in your mind from the moment you attended that meeting and sensed they were taking something spiritual from you. Bad luck started for you.
Yeah, but everything, huh? And then let him tell me, like I say, maybe him too. They did the same thing to him because he had a problem, he told me. And that, when people have problems like that that he had an illness. That he had some sores on his hand and he went to a place like that.
Okay.
You see? And that maybe for him too, he wasn't from the Umbanda religion, but something took hold of him and he joined me. And you see, it's something spiritual that I really associate with the evil that exists in this world. That this religion doesn't bring anything good. Because if they show you that in one place they have good saints and in the other place bad saints that are outside, just imagine. They play with both 2 points at that moment. When I went, it was like I would start dating someone but never made it official with anyone, I was already 25 years old. It was a time when you reached 25 and it was like you had to get married or at least be in a relationship before turning 30, the cultural expectation of that time, which isn't really like that anymore, right?
Marbet, thank you for the stories. Thanks, sending you a big kiss. Hey!
No, thank you for listening to me.
Goodbye, bye-bye. Marbet's story opens up a topic that needs to be discussed beyond the controversy, which is precisely the topic of Umbandism and paranormal incorporations. A topic that has been highly requested on the show and also very controversial. And today we're going to dive in to break down what this is all about. What's going on with the Umbanda, this religion, Brazilian and syncretic. Why syncretic? It means that it's a mixture of 3 main currents. On one hand, Catholicism, with the use of altars, with images of saints, with certain prayers. On the other hand, Spiritism, the belief in communication with spirits, reincarnation, and the evolution of the soul. And finally, African religions such as Bantu or indigenous ones, the worship of the forces of nature, the orishas, and the connection with the ancestors. Is it good or is it harmful? I'm going to bring up Sabrina, who also wants to explain a bit about Umbandism. Sabrina, I'm bringing you on live. But is it a good or harmful religion? The answer is short in the official doctrine. It's a benevolent religion. But to analyze it better, we have to look at different nuances. Before we continue, I want to greet Sabrina, who is live. Sabrina, how are you?
Hello, good evening.
Good evening.
Hello, Hector.
Good. Well, listen.
How are you?
Are you an Umbandist? Would you like to share your perspective?
Yes, please.
Go ahead, we're listening to you.
To begin with, I want to tell you that I was Catholic all my life. I got to know this religion when I was 20 years old. Today I'm 29. And it was really hard for me also to understand because there's always this prejudice, you know. Imagine that before I learned about this from someone else who was the one who introduced me to the religion, I used to say to him, look, here on the corner, I mean, they play drums and wear white clothes and kill roosters and hens and so on, because that's the idea everyone has, that it's something bad. What I wanted to sum up in the comments is that just like in all religions, because we have to accept that in all religions you have good people and bad people. Good and evil always exist. So I think that the lady who spoke recently, she must have fallen into the hands of people who do things wrong. Because if we get to the point, as you said yourself, there are also spiritualist currents and so on, they work with spirits. You must understand that spirits aren't a game. Do you understand?
Of course.
That's why there are step-by-step ways to deal with them. It's complicated for people to understand if they're not willing to, because we're still in a society that's very closed off, you know, to religious things.
Of course.
Let's put it that way.
Were you present at any initiation within the Umbanda rituals?
Yes. I have my entities, they come to me, I work with them.
Okay, and I mean, did you use your body to incorporate a spirit, or were you a witness to someone else being incorporated?
First, I was a witness because I didn't understand anything. So for 4 years I saw, and I was learning and understanding why. And then it was my turn to receive my entities in my body.
Okay.
It's not a possession. You have to differentiate what an incorporation is from a possession. An incorporation is simply that. These entities that we work with, they align with our chakras. Although there are people who sometimes lose consciousness and later say they don't remember when they channel, it's not a possession. A possession is very different. That's when it becomes something bad.
Share whatever you can. I'll continue with the report now. But you put your body into it, you let it in, and do you always let in the same spirit?
Yes, and when it's mandatory to let entities in, they say no, it's mandatory, because there are people who don't do it.
Right.
They have them with them, but they don't do it. That already depends on how your mediumship is. Your ability to incorporate and connect, you know, with spirituality.
When you incorporate an entity, do you remember what the entity says, or do you not remember anything at that moment, or does someone else have to tell you about it?
In my case, in my case, yes, I see, I hear, I feel everything. There are things that sometimes I miss that. Then they tell me, Sabri, your organization said something like that. I don't remember it, but most things, yes, I see them, I hear them. Because I repeat, it's not a possession. That's a different matter.
Of course. Thanks for coming to clear things up, Sabrina. I like that it sparks debate. That's the show's goal, so we all grow together. Sending you a kiss.
Yes. That's why, one last thing, that's what I was saying in the comments. It's just about getting a little more informed. I know that, and I've seen many places that do things wrong, because also this, many times people told me, and I confirmed it, that it's also about money. There will always be someone who's going to say, oh no, you had work done, even if you didn't.
Of course.
But they want to charge you.
Of course, well...
Scammers there?
Listen, there are scammers in every field.
But that's why, and they want to, oh no, and that's when they make you feel afraid. And that's when, for example, the person's suggestion comes in. Oh no, because that guy or that mate told me that I have a job, and then your mind starts working on its own. You know, maybe there's nothing there, but that person reached their goal by making you feel afraid, and they're going to take that money from you because you're going to pay the money.
Caro.
They clean you up so this can happen, since the other isn't like that. And about the lady over there, maybe when she went to that place, it could be that she got it into her head, like I'm saying now, or maybe her mediumship channel opened up. That's why she says she started seeing things and so on. And by associating it with this in a way that she thinks it's bad, so maybe on her own, she sabotaged her own path. That's why I say you need to get informed and do some research. Pay close attention because it's not like we're all bad people.
Exactly. I'm very clear about that. That's why I love that this debate is happening. Sabrina, now I'm sending you a kiss.
Thank you. Kisses to you all.
Bye-bye. Guys, it got good because these are taboo topics to talk about like this in public, and we're going to talk about them. What is Umbanda? We were saying technically, what is it? Syncretism? The mix of Catholicism, Spiritism, African religions, is it good or bad? In the official doctrine, it's good. But to analyze it better, we need to look at the nuances, for example, the positive aspects of Umbandism. The main motto of Umbanda, the traditional one, is pure charity. Spiritual works should not be charged for. The goal is to help others heal spiritually or emotionally. The connection with nature. God is worshipped all around through his vibrations of nature, the sea, the forest, the waterfalls, the entities of light. Umbanda works with archetypes of humility and wisdom, the spirits of wise old slaves, or the indigenous warriors and healers. Why do they have a bad reputation? Because there is confusion with the Quimbanda. Umbandism is confused with Quimbanda or black magic. In Umbanda, the right-hand path, no works are done to harm others. If someone promises to bind your partner or destroy your enemy, that's not Umbanda. That's witchcraft or a scam using the aesthetics of the Umbandas. What is the figure of Eshu? In Umbanda, Eshu is not the devil, he is a guardian, he is an entity that watches over the paths and communication. Religious syncretism and prejudice associated it with demons, but because of the iconography, because of the tridents, the red and black colors, but the original function is protection and order. In traditional Umbanda, the white table generally does not perform animal sacrifices. The offerings are candles, flowers, herbs, and fruits. What's the difference? With esotericism? Esotericism is not a religion. Esotericism is a set of knowledge, hidden, or let's say reserved for a select few initiates in Kabbalah, Tarot, alchemy, astrology. But Umbanda is a religion open to the public in its rituals, with esoteric practices, but the religion is above the esoteric practices. We're discussing the management of invisible energies. Now then, like any spiritual tool, it depends on the hand that wields it. It's good, yes, when it's used for self-knowledge, for energetic cleansing, for community emotional support. When does it become harmful? In the hands of people who psychologically manipulate others, or in groups that promise magical solutions to realistic problems, which are actually something else. Now then, let's dive right into one of the topics. Most paranormal within Umbanda, the incorporations, the spiritual incorporations. What is technically an incorporation? In Umbandism, it is not considered a possession, especially not in the cinematic sense. We're very influenced by movies, you know, where a demon enters a body. What Umbandism does is, I'm going to try to explain it with words that will be easy to understand, as if it were a coupling, auric. What is the mechanism? The energy of the entity of this spiritual guide approaches the aura of the person who provides the body. It doesn't enter the physical body, literally, but rather it connects to its chakras, to control speech, posture, and gestures. The difference between an incorporation and an occupation or possession must be made, since they're not the same. Some texts distinguish between incorporation voluntary when the person is predisposed to incorporation and an occupation, which is more invasive. Sometimes it is involuntary, associated with a deeper or more violent trance. What happens to the person's consciousness? There's a big myth behind this. They say someone who offers their body completely loses consciousness, and that's not the case. There is a person who is conscious or semi-conscious, which is most common. The person feels the energy, their voice changes, they say things they didn't think of, but they remain present as an observer of what is happening, just like Sabrina was saying earlier. However, there is 1% of the incorporation cases where the person, let's say, falls asleep, and when they wake up, they don't remember anything at all. Okay, this also happens, but it's the exception. Now then, what about what is seen? The person who attends, who witnesses an incorporation, but isn't the one offering their body? You see the person who is possessed, whose body becomes hunched, whose hands become stiff or shaky as if he had arthritis, whose voice changes, becomes slow, who walks dragging his feet. That's it. When the spirit is that of a wise old man, or preto velho, that is the physical manifestation of the spirit of the wise old man. Now, if the person who embodies it has an upright posture, chest out, and makes sharp, energetic movements, and lets out a kind of shout similar to the sapukai, we're referring to an indigenous person or warrior. The caboclos, if the person starts to have a defiant attitude, a loud laugh, bursts of laughter, which are serious or high-pitched, a fixed gaze or a sudden intense look, asks to drink and smoke, like he's desperate. So we're talking about an issue, or about the Pombashira, another type of incorporation. If any of you friends from the paranormal community want to look for an explanation, scientific, for this, we can also provide it. What does psychology say? Science explains this with a word that young people are using a lot nowadays, which is dissociation. Did you hear the kids saying, "Oh, I dissociated"? Well, for us, it's dissociation or an altered state of consciousness. You can see how this role appears and the person allows it to manifest. Psychology says that everything you see is part of the same person. There is no incorporation for psychology, but rather it takes advantage of the trance to express things that consciously he represses. What does neuroscience say about incorporation? Neuroscience says that during these trances, brain waves change similar to what happens in a deep hypnosis. It's not something pathological. According to neuroscience, it's a human mind capability. Okay. Now, what do the people who put their bodies into this say? Trances to these incorporations. They talk about sudden cold in the stomach, tachycardia, heaviness in the nape of the neck, or a sensation that your hands are swelling. That's the moment right before your human personality shuts down to make way for the entity. Umbandism and incorporations. We try to shed some light on this topic within our program. Obviously, I would love to read your comments on this video down below. You can leave your comments, people from the Umbanda religion, people who are not religious, anyone who wants to express themselves or share stories, welcome. In the comments here on YouTube or on my social media where we have posted this content. And for those of you who are following me live, I also invite you to send your voice messages via WhatsApp. For these kinds of opinion topics, I invite you to write to us on WhatsApp 116648 6777 116648 6777. We listen to their opinions, additions, and Umbandism Otras Noche Paranormal.